Welcome to my channel. This is JC Rock and Metal Reviews. My name is John, and this is my first album review of 2022. So if you saw the thumbnail, I kind of made a bad dad joke about being the best album of 2022 so far. But it is a pretty decent album, and it's a band I never heard of. I just found out about this release maybe like a week ago. One of my subscribers, wrote to me, told me about it, and so I decided to go with this one as my first album review of 2022. You may also notice my background is different. I just cleaned up my music room and I rearranged my desk. So this will be the new background for now. So anyway, let's talk about the band. So the band is called Wilderun, and the name of the album is called Epigone. This is their first album signed with Century Media. They're a progressive metal band. They have a lot of elements of folk metal and some death metal as well. My first impression was that they sounded a little like the band Opeth, but more of like Opeth from the 2000s era. So think of albums like Watershed or Ghost Reveries, but I wouldn't call them clones of Opeth. They have their own style. They have their own way of recording their songs. And anyway, let's talk about it. So the album starts off with a near like 5-minute acoustic folk rock song called Exhaler. It's very soft and very atmospheric. So when I first put on this album, I didn't even think this was a metal band. You hear the song and you don't really hear any heavy guitars until like 2 minutes into the next song, but it's not really that bad. It's a very soft acoustic rock song. It's melodic, it's very atmospheric. You do hear some orchestration, some violins, and it's a really nice song. So the next song is called Wolfgatherer, and it's a 14-minute long song. And it starts off like the previous song, very quiet acoustic folk rock song. But after 2 minutes, you do hear some of those like melodic, I guess, power metal style like guitar riffs. Then it goes back to the soft like folk rock with a clean singing. After about like 4 minutes in, you do hear some of those like death growls. And that's like the part where it does remind me of the band Opeth, which I will be like dropping that band's name a lot during this review. But again, it does have that progressive metal guitars and like a faster drum beat. The song does go back and forth between the soft sections and the heavier sections, and it is the most epic song on the album. So the song closes with like a really soft like acoustic passage. So basically like the first 20 minutes of the album is mostly like this like soft acoustic like folk rock with like some elements of metal. But as soon as you get to the third song called Passenger, and this is where the album really takes off with the heaviness. The intro, which is very epic, it has those pounding drums, those melodic but heavy guitar riffs. You do hear that like Opeth influence on the song with the very complex riffing, more reminiscent of like their earlier albums like Morning Rise, that type of sound. And the song does go back and forth between the aggressive vocals and the clean vocals, and the distorted guitars and the softer clean guitars. I also hear some like female vocals in the background. They're very like mixed, very low. So I'm not really sure about that, but that's what it sounds like. And they have a recording process, kind of reminds me of like Devin Townsend, where they do have all these like different like layers of different like guitar tracks and bass tracks and drum tracks, and there's really a lot going on here. So there are more songs on the album. I will go through them a little more briefly. So the next song on the album is called Identifier. This one has the same style as like the previous song, where it goes back and forth between the heavier sections and the light sections. But what I like about this song is that it has a guitar riff, almost sounds like it comes from like a classic heavy metal influence. It's followed by a shorter song called Ambition, and the song is under 3 minutes. It kind of gives you a break from all that like instrumentation on the album. It's just very quiet, very atmospheric. It's an instrumental, lots of like layers of soft sounds, and that's pretty much all I can say. Next is a series of songs, and there are 4 songs. They're called Distraction 1, Distraction 2, Distraction 3, and Distraction Nulla. And all these 4 songs do have like their own like type of like personality to it. So as with the other songs in the album, you do hear like softer guitars with the clean vocals and some heavier parts with some more like aggressive rhythms. So for example, Distraction 1 is mostly clean vocals with lots of layers of guitar riffs. The song does go into like a whirlwind of instrumentation as it closes out the first part. Distraction 2 starts with like an isolated guitar riff, almost sounds like new metal. I thought of like a band like Korn. But Distraction 3 is very quiet, atmospheric, and it is an instrumental, this part, and it does have a pretty cool like electric guitar solo. And Distraction 4 is just very quiet, but then goes into probably what's like the heaviest part of the album with the death growls, the blast beats, just like the heavy guitar riffing, and it just has this whole like essence of being very dark and eerie. And they end the album with a cover song. It's actually a Radiohead cover called Everything in Its Right Place. And this one was from the Kid A album. So if you know Radiohead, they were very like experimental and ambient and electronic at that point in their career. But the song does work very well as a progressive metal song. It just translates very well into like their particular, this Wilderun style of playing. And it might even be one of my favorite songs from the album, because I think they took this Radiohead song and it just like did a very good job with it. So it's a really good way to start off the new year. I thought it's a really good album. I am a big Opeth fan. Probably need to do some more videos from that band. They are really awesome. But they do capture that like older Opeth style. You know, we all know Opeth is now doing like a softer progressive rock style at this point in their career. But this album is enjoyable. I do like the production on it. It does have a production similar to like those like Devin Townsend albums where there's lots of like layer tracks and a lot going on. This is a really great like headphone album. You can just like listen, sit back and try to like hear all these like different things that are going on. But there is lots of quiet stuff. There's lots of heavy stuff. And you know, you gotta like listen to this album a couple of times just to really appreciate it. You know, I gave it 3 listens today and I really like it. But I will give it a final score of an 8 out of 10. I think it's a good way to start out the year. It's my first review of 2022, so let me know what you thought of this album. So if you heard it, and if you've heard the other albums, also let me know, because you know, I haven't really listened to this band before. So I do have some more metal reviews I will do on Saturday and Sunday. Please remember, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one.